I've never completely read the announcement, by the way. I never really read the announcement. I just like the picture and the first sentence. That's it.
Yeah, so it will be a surprise for everyone. So I thought maybe we have some questions in the room, maybe via Zoom, but I also have like this jar and there are some questions inside. So I don't know for how many there will be time. So I thought I just choose them. And yeah, maybe we can start in Bodhicharya if there's a question. Otherwise, I will choose one.
Yeah, yeah. And you can always ask in English or in German, and I will try to answer in that language.
I would just ask in English. I didn't think about this question. I was just thinking, as a first question, maybe I could ask you, what is your story? Would that be an okay question to start with? Just to give us a little bit of context.
The short story is I played at the playground, became a doctor, stopped being a doctor, and now doing mainly Buddhist stuff. And yeah, I think I came to Buddhism because of suffering in my surrounding, and also because I was like contemplating why kids die, you know, or if there is a self, you know, and yeah, and then that led me to understand that, or that led me to notice that I believe in rebirth, even though I've never thought of it, you know, I was 10 or something. Yeah, and that I think made me ready for something that is not totally worldly. And then I met Buddhist friends and like a girlfriend, and then her mother could answer all my questions that I ever had. And Maria knows her also. And yeah, she was never really contradicting my own answers, but put them in a bigger picture and yeah, showed the connection between these topics. Yes, and then I really worked as a physician for 20 years, and then yeah, that is of course a nice job, but it is also not fully fulfilling. And then I stopped at some point, like 6 years ago. And now, yeah, as Isa said, I'm working as a translator or editor, those kind of things.
Thank you.
All right, so I choose a question. Oh yeah, it's from Joachim, and he's asking, Dear Arne, what is the best way to close the door to the 3 lower realms? Questions?
Is this person here? No, maybe not.
No,
Right?
I think he just sent it via email.
Okay. Because I would like to talk with that person, actually. I mean, usually, I mean, Buddha Dharma is the best. And I think usually it is said, like, yeah, if, like, actually a disciplined life, they would say, is the best. So that we stop harming ourselves or others and try to be as helpful as possible for ourselves and others. And yeah, then if we look into the traditional texts, then there are, of course, lists of what to avoid, like lying, sexual misconduct, and all of that. But then also things to adopt, which are the opposites, like saving lives, telling the truth. And they say this is actually the best, you know, to not fall into lower realms. And that is already, that's not the aim, but it's also very good because yeah, in the lower realms, the problem is suffering is so overwhelming that we don't have any mental space to think about something else. But in higher realms, yeah, there's less suffering, and therefore there's more space that we, yeah, maybe yearn for the truth. And so therefore, like, not being in the lower realms is a good stepping stone. But still, it's not good enough to only be in the higher realms. But then we also need more wisdom to really then get out of samsara altogether. Anything about that? Nee, aber wenn du auf Deutsch fragst, kriegst du eine deutsche Antwort. Yeah. But if you have anything to that question and answer attempt, please do so. Yes. Mit Mike, I guess.
I was asking English. I once heard the lower realms are just actually a projection, but I also heard that about our current life. So I'm a bit confused as to how impactful being in the lower realm would be and how we could escape it.
Yes, I think if we come from the side that everything is a projection of mind, then that has to be consequently applied to everything, right? Then also to this life, or to higher realms, or to attainment of enlightenment, or to suffering, or to love, or whatever. But if we think, yeah, even though maybe it's a projection or illusion, nevertheless it matters, to people, then also our actions matter, and then also these circumstances matter, if we are in lower realms or not. So I'm just saying it would be like not working if we think lower realms are just a projection of the mind, but higher realms are truly existent, then that would not work. But we have to be consequent with one thing. And yeah, the Buddhist view would be, everything is a projection of mind or an illusion. Nothing is as it seems. So nothing is like a dream. But nevertheless, nobody wants to have a nightmare, sort of. So therefore, compassion or discipline, carefulness matters with oneself and others. Yeah. What do you think? Say something with the mic. Are you friends of Noah?
No,
No.
not yet. Yeah, I think the confusing part is that somebody basically told me, when you're in the lower realm, it's just a projection, so it basically doesn't matter. But like you said, if you apply it consequently,
Yeah, this
it is very scary.
Yeah, but this is the same, it's as real or as unreal as the lower realms, what we have now, even though it makes sound, even though I can feel it and taste it or whatever. Yeah.
And I don't know if this life, as we all know, is full of suffering. So is the lower realm kind of overlapping with this life? So if I'm in this life and I suffer greatly, is this already a lower realm, or is it just the suffering of
some
this
Rinpoche,
realm?
some Rinpoche say like that as a human, let's say we talk in Buddhism about 6 realms of existence, and some Rinpoche say that within one day as a human you could travel through all the 6 realms, So therefore, like if you have intense fear or intense anger, that could be seen as a representative of the hell realm and that suffering connected to it. Or if you are getting very arrogant, then that could be like the God realm that you're going through. Like Trungpa Rinpoche, I think, created also like a Maitri space awareness program where you sort of, where the idea is that you get aware of from which realm to which realm you are jumping, so that you can understand your patterns and that you can cut them, where they are. And yeah, in the Buddhist literature, that's it's always explained in both ways. You could perceive the 6 realms as something out there where we are like reborn in, or you can also understand it as projections, or you can understand it as mental states that we are having.
No more questions, thank you.
Maybe another question in the room? Not yet? Deutsch, isn't it?
These are the same questions like these ones, right? That
Huh?
you have?
I have the same question as you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought maybe you need them or not.
Dr. Summer.
Frage 1 auf Deutsch. Was ist, wenn es noch ein sechstes Skanda gibt, das der Buddha übersehen hat?
I'm also hearing these questions for the first time, just that you know. I mean, from Buddhist point of view, we sort of try to assume or believe or know, at least through inference, that Buddha is omniscient. And so that sort of eliminates a lot of doubts that we could have that he has overseen something as important as that. What could it be, the sixth skanda? You know the 5 skandhas, right? All of you? Good. You too? So it's basically the psychophysical thing that we are, you know? So it's the body is the physical part. So this is 1, and then there are 4 that are describing the mind. And yeah, like perception, you know, karmic formation, consciousness, and sensation. Yeah, and actually this is like a very Abhidharma-ish teaching based on Buddha's teachings. And there, I don't know if anybody has studied Abhidharma, but it's a collection of many lists and topics. And very often also in the context of the 5 skandhas, it is said that this is such a huge simplification of the Buddha so that we can get it sort of. So for Buddha, there's much more to say than 5 skandhas. And of course, we could, you know, like if we look into these 5 skandhas, then in one of the mental skandhas are like the mental events, you know, and they're like 51, you know, for example. And in another one are these like non-associated formations, and they're like 14 or 20 something, depending on the tradition. My point is there are so many, like, therefore like 5 is already like essentialization. And yeah, Buddha could also essentialize that into 10. But since I believe, and I also have some half-educated reasons why I believe that Buddha is omniscient, and so therefore he didn't really skip any important part. But you could have done that in 10 skandhas also. That doesn't matter, you know. Like often we talk about 6 parameters, but then also sometimes about 10, you know. That is an option, and 6 is not wrong, 6 is not missing anything. But still 10 is also giving some more information maybe, but they are also included in the 6. And if you want to study why Buddha is omniscient and is not overlooking something, that's the word, right? Or missing out of something, then you can study Dharmakirti's text Pramanavartika, which is sort of soonish translated into English, where Buddha is established as a valid cognizer. Because that is sort of important in Buddhism, that we perceive Buddha as an authority. Yes. Something in regards to that?
I think they are fine.
But omniscience also in Dharmakirti's text is not, he's also saying there are like different understandings what omniscience means, you know. Does it, for example, mean to know how many insects are in this room? Or like what is the molecule that could cure cancer or something? I mean, I'm making this up, you know, but that kind of ideas Dharmakirti has. And for him, the omniscience of the Buddha means that Buddha knows how to teach the complete path that we can attain enlightenment. So therefore, it is irrelevant, to know how many insects there are in this given room. So that would, for Dharmakirti, not be part of Buddha's omniscience. But everything that is necessary for the Buddha to teach us to attain enlightenment, that is Buddha's omniscience. And the skandhas are sort of part in that part, yeah. So therefore, I trust that Buddha didn't omit anything.
All right. Something else in the room?
Hey, Arne. I tried in English. I have one question. I think I once asked the Lama, but it didn't, there's never a stupid question, and we have this topic here, and as I said, I tried once more because we only laughed. I did not understand why. So, however, we always talk about Vajrayana to be secret.
Mhm.
Yeah, and in the past times, people really kept secrecy. As far as I heard, but today, you find everything on the internet and everything is talked about, and there might be several answers, like it's self-secret, so it won't reveal to the people you even have the access to the text, or how is it today? It's a little bit open question.
So what is the main question?
Ich sage das nochmal auf Deutsch, vielleicht das macht es sonst ganz klarer. Ich frage mich halt die ganze Zeit, was ist das, also dieser Geheim? Also das ist mir schon klar, jetzt mit der Nachbarin, die da keine Ahnung von hat, sollte man natürlich nicht darüber sprechen. Aber es wird halt immer gesagt, man soll das eigentlich alles geheim halten, aber dann reden doch alle drüber. Und für mich ist das so ein bisschen kompliziert, so mit, wie verhalte ich mich eigentlich? Richtig. So, das ist so ein bisschen der Punkt.
Mhm. So in English or German?
It's fine in English. So, ich denke, es gibt mehr Leute, die Englisch verstehen als Deutsch.
Okay. So secrecy of Vajrayana, I think there are a couple of reasons why it should be kept secret. And one big reason is to not confuse the unprepared listener. And because there are sometimes, I don't know, are you all exposed to Vajrayana or not? Maybe not, right? So again, I cannot talk about it. but it is a thing, like emptiness also, like it's a thing that, let's say, is like solid food that is not digestible by babies, So that is a big idea why it should be kept secret. And then they also say, it should be kept secret so that it preserves its power or blessing, and not getting diluted. And then nowadays through Amazon and whatever platform we can buy all the Vajrayana stuff and the books. And then some Rinpoche say, that is not good because it could end up in the hands of some people who are not ready for it and for whom that might be like confusing or something that they want to avoid, or that maybe kills their inspiration or interest in Buddhism. But then others also say like, but there is some self-secrecy in it, even if you look at it, you will not, if you're unprepared, you will not really understand it properly. So there are really different opinions about it. But for us, let's say as practitioners, I think it's good to keep that secrecy, and not like make Vajrayana books intentionally too available, or to talk about Vajrayana with people like your neighbor or other people who are not yet don't have the foundations to get it. Okay, say something. But we cannot change Amazon anymore. That is like these books are available.
Like for instance, I think it's kind of also like a kind of policy of Rinpoche here at Bodhicharya. So like every pujas are open to everywhere. And so recently I was at Rigpa, Dhammamati, and they only share with their texts with people who have the teachings and the Wang and the Lung and all the stuff. And we are very open here about it. And on Sunday we do Tara Puja. Every Sunday we do Tara Puja, and it's open to everyone. And people coming here in just to, oh, it's Sunday morning, I want to have to do some nice stuff, like, oh, let's visit a Tara Puja, oh, a goddess, a Buddhist goddess. And then they need some explanation. And I really felt like a little bit strange, or like don't know what I can tell them, so they understand enough how it is meant, so they can participate somehow, or if I tell them too much, because in my impression, like the Tara Puja involves so much deeper philosophy and viewpoints you cannot understand as a beginner, and that's and for me it's difficult how to deal with that. And because I'm the Vize here, of course they ask me, when Radek isn't here, they ask me.
Yeah, and as you said in the beginning, it's an open question, and I think no matter what I say, it will stay open.
Yeah.
Because also there are some masters say it's good just to come so that people have a connection, you know, even though they maybe have like a theistic understanding of Tara, you know, as if she is somewhere out there, you know, and so just for the connection and some blessing or whatever, yeah, everybody can come. But then other teachers also say, no, this is a Vajrayana thing, and you need to at least have refuge, Bodhicitta, at least an intellectual understanding of emptiness and renunciation, of course, and only then you can enter whatever Vajrayana practice. So there, and both, I think they have a valid point. So yeah, for me, this is also like, I wouldn't make any rule, but yeah, I'm happy if the Rinpoches in whatever given center make a rule, you know. In the Sakya centers, it's even more strict, you know, like there's also never a digital copy of a sadhana or something, because it's too shareable. Yeah. So they only give it at the end of an empowerment to those people who have been there, you know, to make, to ensure that. And they, for example, would not let non-Buddhists in, or people who didn't receive the empowerment. But then all that also depends on like the Tantra class, you know, there are like different Tantra classes, and let's say Tara is more like on the lower side of Tantra classes, and therefore maybe, the depiction or the practices or the substances that are used are not too outrageous, you know, and so more like digestible by beginners. So then it's also more okay. But then if it's getting too high in the Tantra classes, then maybe there needs to be more restriction.
Yeah, if you really read into the translation of the 21 praises, there are also these wrathful aspects. So, and I always, actually, I really tell the people, like, use it, think as a method, and like not like deities in a Western sense of thinking. So, like these qualities. I try to explain them that, because I wouldn't feel unwell else if they have a deistic thinking about that, but it's still there. So yeah.
This is actually good.
But maybe I finish now. Are there more questions in the room?
No, but there's question 9. Can you display that by Martina? Yes. Thank you very much for your kindness to respond to answer questions. I have 2 questions for the moment. What is the difference between the concepts of deity and God in Buddhism? So I think that is a little bit what the danger could be. In Buddhism, like, you know, Sigi Jung, you know, like a psycho person in the Western context, he was talking, you know, about the archetypes. You know, you could understand in Buddhist context the deity as the archetype or the personification of our inner qualities that are sort of in us, even though they are not accessible at the moment. So like deity in Buddhism is never to be understood as something that is really separate from us. Yes, but it's more like to make these qualities that are in our mind or in the nature of our mind, to make them relatable, So therefore, these qualities could be also, let's say, like personified or like by a glass, but that would not work so much in the human realm where our thinking is always anthropocentric. So therefore, the deity in Buddhism needs to be sort of also like a little bit like human, but not exactly like human, but I mean, as much as a human so that we can, like humanly looking, so that we can relate to it. But then also it has to be better than us, sort of, or bigger, or more arms, or more eyes, or more heads, or better ornaments and stuff, so that it's not only like a peer or an equal, but somebody who's like higher and that inspires like inspiration or respect and devotion. But in the end, the deities in Buddhism are always understood to be basically personifications or representations of the nature of our mind. And in sutra terms, you would say the nature of our mind is like, or whatever terms, you could say like maybe the union of emptiness and awareness. And so deities are representing that, and so that we are not stuck with our ordinary identification, that we are thinking, oh, I'm a German, I'm whatever, I'm that and that years old, this and this, these are my parents, but that we overcome these worldly identifications but learn to identify more with the true nature of ourselves. So like in my case, I'm, even though I identify as Arne, but in reality, I'm much more the deity than Arne. And that is true, of course, for everyone, with your own names even. But yes, so therefore, so deity practice is always to go back to who we really are. And God, in non-Buddhist context, I think is like a creator God, or somebody out there, always higher than us. There's always a separation. Out there, so there's a theistic approach. Whereas in the deity practice, we visualize the deity, but then also we dissolve it at the end of the practice. So we don't leave the deity somewhere, but we dissolve it to really understand, yes, it's appearing, but also empty at the same time. And God in Tibetan Buddhism is just one of the 6 realms of samsara. That means this is a non-liberated being, and therefore definitely we don't try to identify with that kind of state, or we don't try to achieve that kind of state. But it's one samsaric possibility, like human realm or animal realm. It's not liberated.
Working? Yes, now, if you could expand on that last point, because I was not familiar with that, God being a non-liberated being in one of the realms.
Yes.
Is that what you said? So I'm not so familiar with that. So if you could please tell us a bit more.
I will. You guys, are you understanding English or German? Okay, that's good. So you can ask him whatever question. I will, in whatever language, as long as it's German or English, and I will try to answer that. So in Tibetan Buddhism, we have 6 realms of existence. Like I think the lady already talked about hell realms earlier, so we have like hell realms, then the hungry ghost realms, the animal realms, human realms, semi-god realms, and the god realms. So these are like is like the classic explanation of possible existences within samsara. That means within samsara means in all these realms we are lacking wisdom, and we are bound by karma and negative emotions, and all realms have suffering in different dosages. And God realm is sort of the highest within this context, but it's still not the best for Buddhists. For Buddhists, the human realm is the best because there's a nice mixture of suffering and happiness, and that helps us to know what to avoid and what to adopt. But in the God realm, there's sort of too much happiness, luxury, and stuff. So then it is too distracting, and then there's no suffering, and then there is no incentive to do anything. But just one is basically a hedonist, and just enjoying what is there. And from the normal description, then these beings, they have accumulated a lot of good karma and merit in the past, and therefore they're having this very positive existence. But then by not doing anything virtuous in that life, they're only exhausting their good karma without accumulating more good ones. And therefore, at the end of the life, basically, the good karma is exhausted, and then some bad karma that was latently there will manifest, and then they will fall into lower realms. That is sort of the classical explanation of it.
Thank you.
And that could be like the lady said, this could be also happening in one's life, if you're only like a surfer boy in Australia, and do nothing else than surfing all the days and enjoying the ladies, the good food, and not really doing something beneficial, then that is sometimes used as an example. You're totally hedonistic and not doing anything, not creating any new causes for good results. And so therefore you're only exhausting the old causes for these good results. And so that is not sustainable, basically.
Thank you. I understand the process. I am fascinated because it's the first time I hear it for some reason. Perhaps I should have known this, but the idea of the word, from a language perspective, the idea that the word is God. From a Western point of view, we're so used to God meaning one thing.
Yeah.
And here that word, that same word, is being used to describe something totally different.
Yes.
And I find that just fascinating. And I wonder what the original Tibetan word might be, or how have we translated that word into God? Is that the literal translation, or is
it seems
it
like,
must be? I'm just.
I mean, Christianity is like monotheistic, but then you have also like what's called polytheistic, I guess, or pantheistic. Polytheistic, like Greek, they have so many gods for everything, like sleep and whatever. But in Tibetan or Sanskrit, it's called Deva, and in Tibetan La, and it means like God, but also deity, which was in the question. So it is both is the same, but then it's a matter of context. But I also like Buddhists talk about hell realm, and apparently that is the best translation for it. It sounds similar to Christianity, yes. And there are also, just for the completeness, there are also like we have the 6 realms of existence that I mentioned, but then there are also like other worlds where there are other gods, but they are basically like in deep meditation or absorption. So that is yet another realm of gods, but they are also not out of samsara. So in Buddhism, we think there are so many god realms. And as a Mahayana Buddhist, we don't aim to be born in any of those. We think the human realm is the best, partly because of this good mixture of suffering and happiness, and also that we have the body that we have is in this Vajrayana thing is important. And so therefore we try to avoid god realms to be reborn there, and we also try to avoid lower realms.
I add something to that, like
No.
No, not okay. I will still
Yeah,
still do
please.
it. Before I started to practice Dharma like 6 years ago, and before for many years I was into like polytheist, pre-Christian spirituality, European spirituality, particularly Norse, Azatru. And there, I find it really interesting because there the gods are also in a cyclic existence. And these, maybe many of you know, like you've seen the Marvel things, like, Ragnarok. Ragnarok is actually, it's like a destruction by fire. And afterwards, younger gods, like their children who survived, will populate the new world. The new will arise back. And when we studied Gampopa, it was like there's a destruction by fire, and every seventh destruction by fire will be by water, and then every second by water will be by air, and so on. And like it was, yes, like we have these, we are from a Christian culture now, so we have this idea about like the creator God, and it's like eternal and all-knowing, but these pre-Christian concepts, they are also cyclic in themselves and not like creator gods. And all these gods, of course, they have failures and they can die and they can lose, yes, they can lose everything like us too. So they are only part of this world too. So maybe it's interesting.
Yeah, in Buddhism, we don't accept a creator God with all these adjectives like permanent, what was it, all-knowing and all good, yeah, out of reasons.
Okay, so another one from the jar, I guess. Is there one at Mario?
Yeah, life is always nice because then we can talk back and forth.
Amy?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Hello.
So- Hi. Thank you. So relate to that question earlier. So I have a question about the Pure Land. Some people practice go to the Pure Land. Is that part of the world? Where is the Pure Land actually? Is it in the God's room?
Yeah, have you heard about Pure Land? Yeah, so the best answer, I think, that it's here, I think I look here, right, to see that she sees me best. So, okay, let's use me as an example and Isa. So me as a normal Arne, like how I normally function, I see Isa, yeah, as a good human beings with qualities, maybe also some hang-ups or something, like a normal human being with qualities. That's already good, If I would have the hell perspective of her, then I would see her as my arch enemy or something, Yeah, I'm just, and all that has nothing to do with Isa, It's all my perception of her. And then if I purify my perception more, then I really perceive her as the best, my best friend, the best human I've ever met, All that is possible because she is neither of those. Yeah? If she would be one of those, we all would be stuck with that perception of her, but she's empty of all those. And therefore, all those perceptions are possible. That's very Nagarjuna, in case you have heard that quote. Yeah, so therefore, yeah, also to come back to your question. So if basically I have my hell glasses on, then all of you are enemies and threatening, ugly and all of that. Has nothing to do with you, but it's my perception of you. Again, if I have my normal human perception of, or my human glasses, then I perceive everybody abzufischen. So then I see everybody as a good human, let's say, with some good qualities. And if I have very purified perception, then I see all of you as the greatest humans ever, But then, if I'm even going beyond that, then I see everybody as a deity. And that again comes back to this topic what we had earlier, that the deity is that is basically the true nature of all of us. And again, in Isa and my example, if I'm really having so much wisdom, compassion, skillful means, and by that a really pure perception about everything and everyone, then I see Isa and each one of you as a deity, and I see all these, the outer world, not like a ordinary outer world, but as the mandala or something. And then instead of hearing ordinary sounds, when he's closing the bottle, I hear like maybe mantras or whatever, And in case of my usual thoughts, conceptual thoughts, I don't perceive them as dualistic thoughts, but as wisdom. Because that is all these are the nature of all those. So the nature of Isa is the deity. And the nature of this is not, this is not even ordinary, but it's that also applies to our bathroom, that's what I'm trying to say, It doesn't matter what environment we are in or what room we are in, that we perceive it as ordinary or impure or disgusting, or also as something that we are getting attached to. There is never we can never blame the room for it, but it's always our perception to it. And then based on our perception, we have a certain judgment to it. So therefore, long story short, the pure realms are exactly here if we are able to see it. Does it make sense, or do you want to say something, Amy?
Yes, thank you.
And therefore, back to your thing, we could also say the hell realm is here if we are so confused that we see all that as a hell realm,
Mm.
So therefore, and as I said earlier, God realms, because you asked that, God realms in Buddhism are always within samsara, but pure realms are not. So therefore, the pure realms cannot be in the God realms. You want to say more, Amy?
No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But you wanted to add. Can you wait for the mic?
I just wanted to add a question to that. What does it mean then that we, in Prova practice, like our mind goes to Pure Land? What does it mean that in this context?
Yeah, that our mind has a pure perception.
So after death, there is some moment where our mind is in this pure, in Devachan, in the Pure Land.
Yeah, Devachan is one example, yes.
Okay. It's just one of the...
Yeah, I know, like usually, traditionally, like pure realms are described as being out there somewhere. You could also perceive it like that, so that your mind is transferred to there. But then normally it is also said, everything, your mind doesn't have to move anywhere anyway, It cannot move because it doesn't have any location to begin with, And so then you could understand, if you have that view, then the Pova practice then is that you transform your mind in a mind that has pure perception. And that is, free from, like Pova practice is something that we do when we are dying. And when we look into the dying process, there are so many options where we could get enlightened. And so we are basically doing that practice to use one of these options. But that is a big thing, since the mind is not out of matter, it cannot be locatable, And therefore, if I die now and I'm reborn in 1 week in Beijing, it's not that my mind is really traveling there, but it's more that my mind is always, not even always, but because it's, but always maybe it's okay. And it doesn't have a location, so we cannot say it is in Germany. But sort of, then can, based on my tendencies or my karma or my negative emotions, then yeah, the mind projects aging, but the mind never moved, you know. Otherwise, you will run into so much unwanted consequences, you know. Does it take time, you know, how fast has the mind to travel, you know, and things. Isa.
All right, so let's pick another question.
Yes,
And
let's see.
then we'll see. So Andrew is asking, dear Dr. Arne Sommer, sometimes I feel like I'm half-stepping with my so-called practice. If I'm not totally and completely fearlessly sincere, am I just pissing in the wind? Thank you. That's number 2.
Is it pissing against the wind? Because that is stupid.
I guess he means
Yeah, is
pissing
that
against
that?
the wind, yeah.
Cowboys should not do that. Half-stepping, like half-heartedly? Yeah, so let's translate half-stepping as half-heartedly. Does that make sense? Yeah. Maria, would you say that? Yeah, so the result will be always according to the course, you know. If I do my practice quarter-heartedly, then my result will be also quarter-heartedly. If I do it half, then half. If I do it full-heartedly, then, or wholeheartedly, I think is the word, then the result will always be wholeheartedly true, you know. So the result is directly proportional to the number of parts of our heart that we are using in our motivation. Yeah, and full-heartedly, full-steppingly would be the best. And that is ideally the case. If I'm not totally incomplete. But can you show the question again, monsieur? But if I'm not totally and completely fearlessly, yeah, it was good. Yes, sincere. Okay, who's totally and completely fearlessly sincere? Question mark. Only the Buddha, right? And who doesn't need to practice? The Buddha. So therefore, I'm saying, as long as we are on the path, we are not totally and not completely fearlessly sincere. That is sort of the definition of being on the path, you know? That's why we need to practice. If we would be totally, completely, fearlessly sincere, then we would not need to practice because we would be Buddhas already. Got the logic? So therefore, what I'm saying, it's totally normal on the path that we have fears, that we are not sincere, and therefore just pissing in the wind, therefore we are self-sabotaging, or maybe that is the better word for that. So that is very normal on the path, you know, we are imperfect, therefore that's the definition of a path dweller. So, and then we have all these things, we have fears, we have jealousy, we have wishes, we have hope. So that's basically normal. But then, yeah, on the path, like these hope and fears, they should reduce on the path. And then, yeah, we are pissing more and more within the direction of the wind, I guess. and by that, blessing the land and not harming anyone. Yeah, but that's it, you know, as a Buddhist is not a Buddha, you know, so Buddhist is somebody who has confusion, who has suffering, who has fear, who's doing things in the wrong direction. And so therefore, these people need practice, and the practice will be imperfect. That's it, you know. And that will continue, you know, until we become a Buddha. I think you wanted to add something.
Just wanted to add a quick point on that, and I think you already answered it right at the end there with about practice. But And I don't know exactly what Andy, I mean, I kind of do, but I don't want to speak for him. But what I'm detecting is something that I've been hearing a lot, because I work with people and I try to ask them to meditate, not in this context here, but for my work. And I often feel the guilt that people have when they don't meditate enough, or they're not able to keep a regular practice, or this week I only meditated once. And then they are overcome by guilt at that fact. And I don't know if this is what is meant here, but this is what one of the things that I took from that, this idea of guilt, that we are not meditating enough. So you answered some of it already. I just wanted to build upon that a little bit.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago in India, Tsongtse Khyentse was teaching about that, what you said. And he says, like, sometimes people come to him and say, oh, I practice, I have like finished my Nandro, I did like 100,000 this or that. This is like one group, he said. And the other group is like very busy people, you know, who are working, and then they're coming to Rinpoche and they feel very guilty that they're not practicing, you know, that they wish so much to practice, but they don't find the time or don't take the time. And he says these are much better because yeah, that guilt is actually a good voice that we have, you know. I don't know, guilt has a bad reputation, I guess, in Christianity, but you know, like if we go here to, what is this? It doesn't matter, Samariterstraße maybe, and then run into random pedestrians, they don't have that guilt at all, you know. They're just happy with whatever they do, or they're just unhappy with whatever they do, but they don't have this inner urge to practice, you know, or this understanding that practice would be a good thing to do. And so that is where Khyentse Rinpoche was coming from with this answer. And he also quoted Milarepa, who said, yeah, that dying with the regret of not having practiced enough, if you achieve that, that is already a big achievement for your life, you know. Yeah, so it's a very precious thing, you know, to not have. Yeah, so the other group that Rinpoche is meeting quite often, you know, this group, you know, they could be very complacent, or they could be maybe arrogant, you know, or overly confident, you know, that they practice like 100,000 of this and that, and that could be another obstacle. So therefore, I think it was Jigme Lingpa or Longchenpa, I always don't know, but I think it was Longchenpa, and he said we should be happy and sad with our practice. So we should be happy with what we are doing, that keeps us going, you know. So we should enjoy it and celebrate it, you know, that we practiced again. But then also we should be sad. That means like we should know that it is incomplete or imperfect, and that helps us to improve it. But we should have these two. And I think that's maybe also an answer to that question number 2. Okay, I think.
Yeah, so Andy is on Zoom. So
Is
maybe
that the Andy who asked the question? I guess so.
I don't
I'm afraid,
know.
yes.
Thank you, Arne.
Okay, from where's the wind in Ireland now? Or where are you?
Oh, it blows in all directions. I
Then
think,
it's difficult to piss.
but you know the sense of that maybe it's trying to get a judgment of what is working or what is not working, but maybe to tie it in with it's more about the impure perception of yourself. You know, my impure perception of Andy, of that I'm not doing this. This could always be more sincere, more fearless. Do you understand that? And
Of course.
feeling of that sense of dissatisfaction and guilt towards like teachers that have, you know, I'm not doing enough. You know, it's this constant niggle. And I think you've answered it really well. Of it, is it an impure perception or is it a positive thing? You know, because it's motivational.
Maybe it's a realistic perception.
Yeah, for sure.
In my case. Okay, I have to look there, right? Okay, whenever I look strangely to the right, it's because I'm actually looking at you, Andy. No, I think that is maybe what Longchamp is saying. It is realistic. That we are imperfect and fearful and not sincere. But then he's saying, yeah, there's a good side in us, which is like your guilt of not practicing properly. But then also there should be your sadness that, that you're not practicing like fearlessly, for example. I mean, so it's a good thing. I think if I'm quoting or paraphrasing Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche, then it's a good thing to have that guilt or this bad feeling about one's practice. But of course, that should not be the only thing. We should not go into that extreme. But also, like Longchamp said, maybe also focus on the good things you are doing and that you have done.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable enough with it, but I'd be more scared if I was feeling, like everything was brilliant.
Yes, but in your case, like even if that is also what Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche said, and Kanto Rinpoche also like a few years back in Berlin. In your case, even if you would be a very shitty practitioner on the cushion, but for example, what you do in the Bodhicaya archive is benefiting so much, for people. That is also a big practice. So Kanto Rinpoche was talking about people who practice, or people themselves, or people who enable others to practice. And I think you being a crucial part of that archive, that of Ringo Turku, that is enabling so many people to study, contemplate, and practice. So that's already a great practice what you're doing. Don't you think?
Sometimes I use it as an excuse for not getting on the mat,
Yes, and that's also good that you feel guilty about that.
Oh, okay, I'll be comfortable
but
with
then
that
also
then.
don't overdo that guilt again, but
Yeah,
try to
finding
balance.
that. I thank you very much for the description of that, if things were utterly fearless, utterly sincere, then that's it anyway, It's just moving towards that.
Yes. Yeah, only a Buddha is like that, utterly sincere, fearless, honest, perfect, yeah, but that is, I guess in sutra terms, it's a long distance aim,
Yeah.
But
Thank you
have
very much.
many stepping stones on the way, yeah, or milestones.
Thank you, Arne.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I was assuming that this is the Andy. I think she has, and
Another question. I'm a very confused person. I could just very much relate to the guilt part, or not. I feel like I'm on the path, but I'm also not on the path. And I feel like it's a really beginner's question, but like, how do we start? I meditated a lot. I also took refuge and I'm doing some deity practices. I received some empowerments, but it is said you should have a teacher, but I'm wondering if some teachers are teaching here, is that already like having a teacher, or do I actually have to go up to the teacher and say, you are my teacher, please teach me? Because sometimes we just don't have the opportunity to do that. And then I know there is no quick path, but if one doesn't have enough time left in their life, like what is kind of the essence or the path that they should choose?
what is guilt for you?
I think it's also self-doubting a lot, more than guilt maybe. But is this like now when the the question came about the deity practice, for example, I immediately think, am I sincere enough to do this Green Dharma practice? Do I actually have the right intentions? It's more, I guess, a questioning of intentions, or if I actually have the proper knowledge, I think.
And what means, you said being on the path and not being on the path? What is the difference?
Basically, there's kind of like a path that we should follow, right? Like taking refuge, bodhisattva vows, nanjo, and so on. But I'm very like kind of confused about that part, what I should actually do. But I do, sincerely believe in Buddhism and rebirth, and I contemplate and I read. Yeah.
Yeah, so according to Longchenpa, who was a great Nyingma master from 14th century-ish, and you become a Buddhist, or which is the entrance to the path through two possibilities. One is by taking refuge. This is what Atisha, another great master, said. And the other is through the right view, and this comprises the 4 seals. Have you heard of these? So he said through either of those you can become a Buddhist. That is sort of the entrance onto the path. And then, as you said, here are coming many teachers coming, and these can be definitely, each one could be a teacher for you if you learn something from that person. Nevertheless, in the higher Buddhist practice, it is very emphasized to have the teacher. So you can have many. That is good, and that can help you, because you get different perspectives and different approaches. But then, at some point, it's also good to find the teacher for you, who knows you personally, who has the motivation to bring you to enlightenment, who has the ability to do so, and the wisdom to know what to do. So that person definitely would be helpful to find. The example is, if you're, this is a pre-GPS example, but if you're coming to a new city without a mobile phone, then it's very difficult to find your way. But if you find a local who lives in the city, she or he can quickly guide you to where you want to go, So that is the idea, ideally you find the teacher for you who knows the path to enlightenment and therefore can more quickly guide you to enlightenment. But the teacher you can find by seeing, by receiving many teachings from different teachers. And then one teacher of mine, Dzogchen Ponop Rinpoche, he's saying you can choose the teacher who, like a good criterion is how satisfying the answers of a teacher are for you, that could be a good indication that this is the teacher for you. But then really spend time to really check that teacher out, how is she or he, and receive more and more teachings. And then at some point, introduce yourself, or you can also do that in the first afternoon or morning, whenever. And then also, then it's also important that the teacher knows you. And then Chomsai Khyentse Rinpoche is saying, like in Tibet or in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there is not really a ceremony, where the student is asking, will you be my teacher? And the teacher is saying yes or no, or maybe, or sending you somewhere else, But nevertheless, he understands that we need that kind of confirmation. So therefore he suggests also, or he's okay with that, since we need the confirmation, then it's also could be helpful for our mind, you know. Like if you date somebody, you know, and then at some you feel like I want to be with that person, and then it's also, you know, let's be an item kind of thing, and then it's also good to have the confirmation, you know, that the other person agrees, you know, with that, you know, something like that. So it could be helpful. It is helpful. I mean, for my mind, it was helpful to ask and get that confirmation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for example, like Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche is such a popular teacher, right? I wonder how even to get this like moment of, you know, this personal moment to ask him.
Yeah, you said that, yeah. But that changed over the years, you know. I remember, like in the beginning in Berlin, when people asked me who's my teacher, I said that name, and nobody knew who he is, you know. But now, yeah, he became more famous. But still, it's possible, you know, always. I mean, if you're interested in that specific, I can give you the email address of the secretary, you know. But that will also not work best, you know. Best is to look. That is true for all teachers, I guess, you know. Look at their website, see their schedule, and go somewhere, you know, where that teacher is, and see that teacher in person, and ask that secretary of that teacher for an audience. That works also in Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's case. I guess the Dalai Lama is more difficult, but there's also, I can give you an email from the office. You know? No, really, it just takes longer, let's say, but it also happens, you know. But then, yeah, it's not like, if you have read maybe stories like Tilopa, Naropa, or Mapa, Milarepa, you know, nowadays it's rare that we have that kind of close proximity over a longer time with our teacher. But yeah, it's also not so necessary, you know, if there's a connection, you know, like in Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's case, sometimes 2 minutes every 3 years is enough, you know, because he can clarify so much for these upcoming years, you know, and then, yeah, you will meet him again. I forgot, but Gampopa spent also not so much time with Milarepa, I think, a few months or something, I heard. Who, you know, is one of our forefathers, and is always saying, yeah, he is the main student of Milarepa and carrying the tradition. Nevertheless, in the sum total, it was not that long. But of course, we or me, also quantity is also important for me, and to spend time with the teacher. But yeah, it's less possible if there are more students. But the quality the teacher can always give you, even though it's in short quantities.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
I think Christiane. But really take your time. Traditionally, it says 12 years, you know. You checking the teacher, and then 12 years the teacher checking you. But nowadays, you know, and impermanence is always knocking at the door, you know. Some of you, one of you could die, you know, or whatever. So we could take it metaphorically, you know, like check properly, also longish time. And at the same time, the teacher can also check you properly over a little bit longish time, and then you make the deal.
Okay. Arne, it's very nice you're here. I have a question. Lately, I meet many people from other religions, because we have inter-religious dialogues. And then they always ask me, what does it mean to be a Buddhist? You know? So do you have a good answer for that? You know, is this the Four Noble Truths or 6 parameters, or how can I, somebody who's coming from another religion, give a short answer? What is a Buddhist?
Yeah, as I said, you know, Longshapa said you can be defined as a Buddhist by 2 things, and one of them is enough. The one thing is like believing in the 4 seals. That is sort of sorry, what Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche is emphasizing in. Can we? Okay, I'm back. So what Khyentse Rinpoche is emphasizing in what makes you not a Buddhist, right? He's saying it doesn't matter what you're doing, you know, if you like Eminem or if you eat meat or whatever, but if you have the view of the 4 seals, that make you a Buddhist. But then Atisha's perspective that Longshapa is also okay with is if you take refuge. And then I think like I think it was in Germany, like 96 or something, Ringo Tulko talked about that. And he said, for him, the refuge doesn't start when you do the actual refuge ceremony, but when you accept that you can change. That was his definition of where refuge, and therefore the entrance onto the Buddhist path starts. But usually these two, like from the view, the four seals, or from the conduct, taking refuge, that makes you a Buddhist. And you can do both or one of them, according to Longchenpa. But I think for Tsongtse Rinpoche, he's emphasizing the view always. So believing in the four seals, I think that is something that doesn't sound too religious, you know. So one can easily say that to a non-Buddhist. Yeah, that is usually not defined as that. But the Four Noble Truths you can a little bit correlate with the four seals also. You know, the second seal is all emotions are pain. That basically means like everything that is contaminated is suffering. So that means the first noble truth, for example. So you could make a chart or something.
Okay, another question in the room? No? So I will choose one. I always choose the short ones, I'm sorry.
That's good.
It's number 3. Wenn jemand eine körperliche oder seelische Beeinträchtigung, Behinderung aufweist, kann dies auf eine schlechte Tat in einem der letzten Leben zurückgeführt werden?
I think the true answer would be from Buddhist point of view, yes, but don't be cynical about it. Sort of. So, so there's if you study Abhidharma with the principle of karma, of cause and effect, then generally whatever happens to us or not happens to us is a result of whatever previous causes we have accumulated in whatever lifetime, this life, or previous lives. And in this example, they say that we did many good things. I think at the beginning we talked about discipline. So we had a good disciplined life, meaning like we helped others a lot, we didn't harm them. So that is usually the cause that we have in this example, like a human rebirth. Or we did maybe do some aspirations in last life that we will have a human rebirth. And so that humanness, that comes from good karma of the past. But then they say, if you then within that good framework of being a human, if you then have these handicaps or limitations, then like in the classical text, it is more that you didn't end your positive actions well. You know, you could always end them, like in Buddhist context, we do dedication, you know, if we do something good, then we share, end is maybe not good, the word conclude, you know, we don't conclude these positive actions well. So in Buddhist context, we do whatever practice, and then we conclude that practice, project, action by dedicating all the goodness that has been accumulated with all sentient beings. So that is a very good conclusion. But if this is missing, or maybe even our motivation is not good in the end of a good project, then this is what is classically meant here, you know, that we conclude our, even though positive actions, if we don't conclude them well, you know, maybe we get totally angry in the end of the project, you know, with our teammates or whatever. Opposite example is, for example, if you are born as a pet dog in a very luxurious place, you know. So that is the opposite example. You sort of did negative actions that led you to a lower realm rebirth as a dog, but sort of you concluded them, or at the end of the project, you know, you concluded these negative actions like with a more positive outlook. And therefore, thanks to the main cause of the negative actions, you have a rebirth in lower realms. But because of the positive conclusion, which is more like a condition, you then have a positive condition in this life, even though it's a lower realm rebirth. But again, whoever has, so basically, the truth is whenever somebody is suffering or has limitations, this is not randomly happen, but it is because of causes and conditions that this person has, or this mind stream in previous lives have been accumulating. But then, we should not become cynical about it, like, for example, I worked as a doctor, and then if somebody is coming with a heart attack, then of course the truth is this person in the past must have accumulated causes for that heart attack. But I could not, as a doctor / bodhisattva, you cannot just say, oh, it's your karma, so too bad. But then, but also it's this person's karma that you as a doctor or bodhisattva are with that person. So therefore, do your best to help this person in that situation. Does that make sense, or anything to discuss on that? But that is like a core thing in Buddhism, it's not random, It's not like I'm robbing the bank and Isa is imprisoned tomorrow, that is not how cause and result works, it's not like I'm creating some causes and then somebody else is ripening the result. But it has to fall onto the same mind stream.
Sorry, Megan. Like two things that I heard about diseases is one, that having this disease, because it's from a bad karma from the past, that having it in this lifetime, the disease will help purifying the karma. However, I wonder if it's just having the disease or if it's kind of working with the disease and seeing the disease as a teaching. Sometimes it's said that like a bad illness is also in that sense a blessing because it's a great teacher.
I think the manifestation of the illness is a result of a negative cause. But depending on your perception of it, like what I said with Isa earlier, if I have my hell glasses on or human glasses or purified glasses, you can see, of course, the illness as a teacher or as a blessing or as somebody or something that shows your direction, a better direction. But that is sort of the reaction towards it, But the appearance of the illness itself is a result of something from the past. And usually, the usual situation would be that it's a negative cause, But then we also sometimes don't know, like sometimes illnesses can also be like really a blessing and they just look like illness, especially if we look from Vajrayana point of view. God, what example? If you are married, and then you are preparing to cheat, on your partner, and then that day, whatever, you have some disease, for whatever reason, and then you cannot go to that person, you cannot do the cheating. So that could be like a total blessing, and that could be maybe even, as in Vajrayana, we would even say, oh, maybe there's a blessing by our teacher, even, So therefore, it looks the same illness, but it has a different cause. But so that is on the cause. But then the second, our reaction to it, also matters a lot, And if we are in Vajrayana, we should try to perceive everything as a blessing by our guru, Then when we are fired or whatever, and because if we, many people have like a negative reaction to their illness, and let's say aggression or aversion, and that reaction creates new karma, because you know, if you have a chronic illness or like long-term illness, let's say for 3 years, and you have like 3 years of aversion to it, that aversion does have an impact on your mind, you know. So then you basically have two problems, you know, like the illness and the results of your aversion towards the illness. So therefore the reaction is, that is at least what we can do now, you know. Yes, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that part totally makes sense to me. But like a person that never heard about the Dharma, for example, and still has the bad karma, has a disease, would just going through the disease also help purifying their karma?
That's what they usually say, but you have to have a peaceful mind. Again, if you all the time have aversion and say, God, why me? You know, then yes, sort of that karma that created the illness is maybe exhausted, but you created so much new, you know. I think you want to say something. But also before I became a Buddhist, I was a little bit following some lectures. Maybe somebody know Rüdiger Dahlke and Howard Detlefsen. So they say, they call it, what is Schicksal in English?
Destiny?
What?
Destiny?
Fate. Fate as chance or something, you know, is a book, you know. So they're trying to reprogram our perception of whatever happens to us. And the one is a medical doctor, so he's also using physical illnesses to see that there's a chance to learn and progress, you know. So and then if you're skillful enough, then you can use whatever happens to you, you know, good things or bad things, you can all bring that onto the path.
Thank you.
And one more thing, since you talked about the 6 realms sort of earlier, like Shantideva is also saying, sometimes when we are Dharma practitioners, then maybe like a bad karma that would have usually led to a full-blown rebirth in hell realm. But because we are a practitioner, so that karma is weakened and we only have a migraine instead of that. So that can also happen, you know, so then thanks to our practice, this hell rebirth karma is ripening now, but in a digestible way, you know.
Yeah, I think it's connected to her because I have some chronic illnesses, but I think somehow it's kind of being lucky with that, because still I'm living in a country where I can have some social welfare, and I'm here connected. I can still, it's like particularly in winter when it's like wet and cold, so my body is really exhausted, so I cannot do much. But in summer I can be here at Bodhicharya, do some things, and I get my retirement money. It's not much. I cannot travel, I cannot go to India, for instance, or do longer retreats, but it's still fine. I can have that. So maybe if I would have a completely healthy body, so I might have that job I wanted to have and be completely busy and never had the idea or the time to practice. So that's kind of, maybe.
Yeah, in my case too. No, I was very sick when I was like 10 to 13. And this, based on that, I became a doctor and a Buddhist. So yeah, is it a blessing?
I don't think all illness is always bad. Sometimes it's for the better.
Yeah, or is it your reaction to it, you know, that you're not getting more twisted, but more inspired, you know?
Don't know.
Oh, monsieur.
You mentioned fate or destiny.
Yeah, this is like a book title from these two guys.
Right, but just got me thinking about the whole idea of destiny and the fact that this is also something that I don't know much about from a Buddhist point of view. Obviously, cause and result, so we have a lot of agency in Buddhism. Is there a concept of destiny in Buddhism in the sense that some things are already laid for us in front of us, or is everything on what is the role of our agency versus something that may already be predetermined? Or if is there such a thing at all as something predetermined?
Yes, sort of like karma is predetermining many things, that what we experience and how we experience it. So there's some element of predetermination, but nevertheless, with the example of Shantideva, like hell realm karma, but I practice well, weaken the karma, and it's just a migraine. So it's not like set in stone, So I can still influence it, But then Ringo Turko once gave the example, like if this is a car and you want to go here, then if you drive very fast, that means you have a lot of habits. Then you cannot just go like this, like around the corner, but it's like this, like very, because you're so fast, like on the highway, the curves are like much bigger than in a small village, But so therefore, yes, you can change the direction, but it takes time, because our habits are so strong. Yeah, so there is a element of predetermination because of the karma we have accumulated in the past, but then also there is some freedom we have now to change that or to make different decisions. But then, of course, you could argue the freedom that we have now, and what can we really do new decisions, or is that also predetermined by our habits, And then in Buddhism, they say the real free decision, or free will is the word, right? You only have if you're resting in the nature of mind, which is the deity, the emptiness and awareness in union, Only if you rest there, that means only if you are not entangled in concepts and ordinary perceptions, only from there you really have free will. Nevertheless, yeah, we can still, even though we are not there, we can still do that, we can a little bit steer in the direction we want to go. So there's both elements are like mentioned in Buddhism.
I think I'd like to share something. That's fine, but I have an aunt and she can tell the future. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but I've known her all my life. She's a very sane person. She's probably quite influenced by her Christian beliefs, but she's been doing this for a large part of her life, and she goes into trances and she reads the future very abstractly sometimes, but you can find patterns, you can find information, and sometimes it makes sense. And I wonder, and it influences me because I speak with her regularly, and I'm trying to look at this more objectively or to be detached from it, and I think I do a fairly good job, but still it's constantly on my mind. What if? And I don't know what to make of it. And I wonder, it just came up now, and I wonder from a perspective of destiny and from a Buddhist perspective, how could we see this?
Yeah, in Buddhism, we also understand that masters can predict or see the future, but it's always a difficult thing because we also follow Nagarjuna and other like middle way masters who say that whatever happens on the relative level is because of so many causes and conditions coming together. So it sounds a little bit impossible to foresee all the causes and conditions, but then the answer basically is sort of the it's more easy to predict or foresee the immediate future, like if you're on the highway with this car, so let's say what I showed earlier, But let's say we are driving 200 kilometers per hour. So that is how strong the causal conditions are coming together. Then sort of I can predict that in the next 10 seconds you will be still, you will still not be here, you know, because you cannot go like this, you know. So I can predict you're still on the road, sort of, you know. So that is usually how it's explained, you know, like there are so many causes and conditions, and the longer you look, you try to look into the future, like that is of course depending on one's individual capacity, then the less precise it will be, because there will be so many causes and conditions that could happen, you know, like using the steering in that example, you know. But if it's like more immediate, then, and if you have a good insight into these causes and conditions and habits, then yeah, it's more like predictable a little bit what is happening. But it's, yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think I'm hearing that it's in the realm of possible.
Yes. So let's say we are driving together 200 kilometers per hour, and so you have to predict where will I be in 1 second. And so you know, okay, it's 200 kilometers per hour, and you see I'm totally not paying much attention, you know, but like just listening to music or something. So you perceive that I will not. You predict very like solidly that I will not change directions, you know, because I have a strong habit just to drive, you know, and the road is like that. So that is sort of more easy so that is very possible to predict. But then, yeah, it's more difficult maybe to predict where I will drive in 1 hour. But yeah, if you are like very good, maybe you can see the factors that will be in play, including my habit, you know, or my craziness or wish, you know, to change direction. So then you have a more and more fuller picture, and then you can more and more predict, but without like too much creating a conceptual picture, but you just sort of, you see it, you know.
Then does that mean that karma leaves some kind of imprint into the, I don't know, some kind of map into the fabric of the universe, right? So if some people have this ability, if it is discernible, that means something has some kind of mark, some kind of message has been left out there.
Yeah, some direction or speed
direction.
has been put, mostly in individual. Yes. You know, like what I mentioned earlier, when I rob the bank, it will not be the result for Isa being imprisoned tomorrow, you know. So it's more like an individual thing, yeah. And yeah, so my karma or my karmic tendencies, they mean, for example, also my habits, and we know they die hard. So they give that speed, you know, in which direction I'm driving. So that is a strong predetermination. But still, I can change it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Arne?
Okay,
That's
which
the long one.
which number?
Which number? Oh God, it's a long one. So we see. It's number 7 about bodhicitta. 2 questions.
Which number?
Number
7.
7.
Yeah.
The first one is, I still don't understand how bodhisattva can wait to be liberated until all beings are liberated. Somehow I can't believe that it's possible for all beings to be freed with them. It's like a naive utopia, and it washes over me. One part of me doesn't solve it, and another rational part does. Can you explain it for my rational part?
Okay, let's do that first. That it's possible for all beings to be freed. Yes, rationally it's not possible, because the number of beings is infinite. So it can never be zeroed. the example is if you go to the east, you will never reach the east. So, sort of, it doesn't matter if you walk 1 kilometer or 1,000, you know. But yeah, so maybe we can look at it from the 3 courages we have to take the Bodhisattva vow. You know, there's like, I think she's referring to the first one, officially the best one, you know, like of a shepherd. You know, you let everybody first and you will be enlightened later. And then there's another kind of courage where you are like a ferryman or ferrywoman, you know, where we are all on the same boat and reach the shore at the same time. And the last one is king, where you attain Buddhahood first and then bring all others to Buddhahood too. When we talked about teacher, what is your name? Okay, when Dorothy and I talked about teacher earlier, then the one example is, not example, but the importance of a teacher is because she or he knows the way. So therefore, the teachings say the shepherd example is not really practical. If you are the last, if you are not enlightened, you cannot show others how to be enlightened. So therefore, I once talked with Ringo Tulku about it. So he said, practically we have to be a king, you know, like Buddha Shakyamuni, you have to be enlightened first, practically. And then you know the way, you know. You are out of prison and therefore you can get other people out of prison. You know each practice, you know each problem of each person, and then you can guide very individually. So practically that is the best. Nevertheless, motivationally, so the best motivation is nevertheless to be ready to be the last. So it's like 2 different perspectives. And then this thing like the ferryman or woman is more like, that's not from Ringo Tulku, but recently I talked with a friend and he came up with that. And that fits very well to with the teachings. It is like, once you are a Buddha, from your perception, everybody is a Buddha. You know what I mentioned earlier, you know, if I'm hell being, Isa is my enemy. But if I have very purified perception, she's the deity. So likewise, if I'm a Buddha, she is a Buddha. So therefore, then it happens at the same time, like the fairy, whatever person. So once you are enlightened, you just don't have any residue left to see something unenlightened. Yeah, so basically my answer is, from the motivation point of view, try to be the shepherd, like be the last and think everybody first. Practically, you have to be a king. You have to be first in order to know the way and to help others. But if you practice it, then once you make it, from your perspective, everybody made it. Everybody is Buddha and samsara is emptied. Okay, and the second?
Yeah, I think in short, it's how can burnout be prevented on Bodhisattva path when self is still there, because she's a therapist. So maybe it's hard sometimes for her.
I learned that burnout comes if, as a Bodhisattva, we are too goal-orientated. Let's say I'm married and I'm an alcoholic, and my wife is a Bodhisattva. So if she has so much the aim, the goal, to make me a non-alcoholic, that could burn her out, you know, if she is too fixated on that, you know. And I talked with Dzogchen Ponam Rinpoche once about it, and so let's just use that example. So he said she should do the best she can, but then let it go, you know. But you cannot fixate on it too much. And Khyentse Rinpoche, who used that example with the alcohol, he said, because Arne, could be like, that I'm alcoholic could be like something that is like since 10 lifetimes, you know, whatever habit I have, you know. whatever self-sabotaging habits I have or addictive habits I have, So therefore, now I'm paraphrasing, but every inch or centimeter she could help me with that is already great, But if she is so goal-orientated that she is healing me from it, yeah, that will exhaust her too much, if she always has that perfect goal and don't see the steps and always compare everything to that perfect goal. So therefore, therefore, that is, I think, important. And even though that term is not used, but do you know the story when Avalokiteshvara came to Buddha Shakyamuni and said, I emptied all the hell rooms today, like this morning, and then he came to Buddha Shakyamuni and then turned around and Avalokiteshvara saw that the hell room is full again, and then he was like, let's say, burned out, and then Buddha Shakyamuni, I think, gave like few hints, to not get the burnout, and one was to remind Avalokiteshvara that everything is just an illusion. So in Buddhist terms, like the emptiness aspect is important then, to let go, to keep this open, spacious mind. And the other point was, because then basically it would imply that Avalokiteshvara has again to work for many kalpas or long time. So the other advice then from Buddha Shakyamuni was to show the relativity of time, And I think he said like sort of the time of a spark, flying out of a fire is sort of the same time as like 3 countless eons or something. So he was saying, yeah, like if you have these 2 tools, sort of, like emptiness, that you understand nothing is so solid, don't grasp at anything, there's nothing to be grasped at, And then also that you understand that the perception of time is so relative, then you will not get burnt out. Longchenpa in some later lives, I think he was once manifesting as a thief or something to meet. So, and he would, when he would be then 32, then he would meet somebody and help this person by stealing something. So we could think really like he spent like these 32 years in this life just for that 5 minutes, but yeah, for Longchenpa, that is, if it's a moment or 32 years, it's no difference, for somebody like Longchenpa. Okay, one last one, or maybe not, no, 58.
I don't know. How long do you like? I mean,
No, I think enough is enough at some point. But is somebody here? Just one last question from here. Okay.
Do you think there's some more question on Zoom?
Okay.
Yeah. I have one question, anonymous, but in the room, because I know someone gave it to me here, but I will ask it anonymous. And I think it's quite important for a city like Berlin. And it's about some kinky practices like BDSM and spiritual to practice.
Spiritual what?
Yeah, our Dharma practice and some kinky practice like BDSM. If I'm into BDSM, how does it interfere with my spiritual practice? Is this possible to live both if I do it in a really consensual way? Or is it always bad? Or is it just a motivation and causes and conditions? I don't know. There's no real question on that.
I was actually assuming that this will be one of the first questions. But I think many answers this person gave already. So, it's not contradictory, but consensus is always the most important thing. Like if you read Pato Rinpoche's Words of a Perfect Teacher and how he is explaining sexual misconduct, then yeah, non-consensual is always the, what is it, the no-go, you know. You cannot have sex with a nun just because you want, or you cannot have sex with anyone who doesn't want. And you cannot have sex with an animal or child because these persons, they cannot give proper consensus, you know. So that is sort of the minimum, you know. So therefore consensus is most important first, to not harm this other person. And yeah, for that, the other person, of course, needs to be able to give consensus. You know, you cannot drug the other person and then say, okay, recite the Heart Sutra if you don't give consensus, you know, something like that, you know. You cannot do that, will not work, you know. So that person has to be sober enough, you know, to give consensus. So that is definitely the bare minimum. And then I think sort of what sexual, I think it's always sexual, no, I'm not an expert in this, but whatever then you do with that person, or vice versa, then the motivation, of course, makes a big thing. But it doesn't matter if it's like, then it doesn't matter so much if the consensus is there and the motivation is there, then it doesn't matter if it's a standard heterosexual thing, you know, what was always sort of accepted, or something what knew her or whatever, you know, even though that was also like happening before. But the motivation is important, you know, like, and of course, with those kind of things, also normal sex, there might be also a lot of desire always as the motivation. And that is not something so good in Buddhism, you know. Yeah, that has to be said, you know. Usually aggression is so easy to detect that it's not something good. But yeah, if one is too much driven by desire or too controlled by desire, then that creates also many problems for others or for oneself. So therefore, whatever practice one is doing, yeah, one should do it compassionately, respectfully, mindfully. A test could be to take a break in between, you know, that one is not too much in the stream. Yeah, but I think these are the most important, you know, like consensus first, and then having the right motivation and checking the motivation again and again, you know, not have a good motivation in the beginning, you know, that we had earlier, you know, and then, but in the end, you know, you're with too much wine and too much happening, you know, you get too entangled in more selfish motivations. So that one should be mindful of that. Okay, anyone wants to add or ask something about that? You? But yeah, let's say it's a sexual technique, you know, so just to, but I mean, they're not like negative per se, you know, that's the main point, you know. If it's consensual and with a good motivation. Or sexual orientation or whatever, it doesn't matter, you know, it's always more like about the mind.
I could add something to it because, you know, I'm kind of a bit connected to the queer scene of Berlin. And one of my friends there is working as a domina. And she's also kind of interested in spirituality. And so how would it be for her? Like, yeah, how would it be for her if she now she's more interested in more other kinds of spirituality, but if you could come to the Dharma, how would it be for her? I know there are the text where it says you cannot work as a sex worker and be a practitioner.
I never saw that text.
Okay, so someone told me.
I think dominatrix is the word in English, right?
Dominatrix is.
Yeah. So, so if she's right?
She, yes.
If she's working for money, you know, then basically the customers by coming give their consensus. So that first thing checked, and then her motivation as a spiritual practitioner could be like, yeah, but so let's say she's practicing Tara in the morning here, you know, and then doing her thing during the day. And then she could always, visualize herself as Tara or whenever she's touching them or they are touching her, that this is sort of the bridge and the connection from that client, customer to Tara, you know? So and that could be then, so first consensus and then motivation, you know?
If she ever is interested in the Dharma, I can tell her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think there are many prostitutes in the master, like many masters have been. Sorry?
In the lineages.
Yeah, in different lineages, yeah. I think that Khyentse Rinpoche likes to talk about the Avatamsaka Sutra, where there's one person, I forgot, 50 or 100 teachers he is following, and so it's a long journey with many chapters. And one was also a child, you know, like 6 years old, building sandcastles on the beach or something, you know, became an important teacher for that truth seeker. And there were a few prostitutes who became his teacher. I think Chulopa had also a good connection. Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty in Buddhism, you know, like we venerate like nuns and monks, you know, like perfect discipline, ordained and stuff. But then also we venerate like, Mahasiddhas who are more like unconventional, you know. Okay, shall we dedicate?
Yeah. To the dedication. Page 18.
Naja, in dem englischen Buch, in the English book, it's the last page. Thank you. Wir machen das auch wieder Tibetan, German, English.
Really?
Yes. Oh, that's Tibetan. Okay.
No, up to you. You're the Umse.
Okay, yes, let's do it that way.
If you ask Kanto Rinpoche, you know, like once somebody is assigned as an Umse, you know, he or she has total power and the rest is following.
I
Really.
decide. Yeah,
Exactly.
we do it that like.
And really, like this is, Kanto Rinpoche can teach a lot on that, you know, and then we always wait until the first syllables are mentioned, you know. So the speed, the tone, and everything is dependent, is decided by the Umse.
Sanamde tamche sikpani tapnya nebe ranam pamchene girgana che bala trukpaye sipit solet rawa sho. Mögen alle durch dieses Verdienst, Verständnis und reine Sicht erlangen und den predigenden Feind die Geistesgifte bezwingen. Mögen sie befreit sein aus dem Ozean Samsaras, der aufgewühlt ist durch die Wogen von Geburt, Alter, Krankheit und Tod. Through this merit may all beings attain the omniscient state of enlightenment, defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, and so free all beings from this ocean of samsara, with its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
Okay, thank you so much. I was really expecting more, whatever those kind of questions, like the last one. Just like announcement, I think in 2 weeks or something on a Sunday, I'm doing this same thing online only in the data center context. They even stole your announcement. They read it apparently and liked it.
It's a great announcement, and maybe there are some more questions left, so
Yes.
maybe I can attend, and then I will ask the last. In the
But you
front.
could also ask for my email, and you can just email me, like.
Or maybe you're just coming back for another
Yes,
part
or
of
that,
the-
whatever, yeah.
So maybe we make it a regular.
Or maybe next time, maybe it's better not to stream and not to record if that reduces your inhibitions. I don't know. But yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you for coming.
And yeah, thank you for interactiveness.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have strawberries left.
Yeah. All right, thank you, all of you, for attending as well in Bodhicharya Center, also via Zoom. And I just want to remember that, as the tradition says, it's everything based on donation. So please leave something in the red box at the entrance, and also via Zoom, I'm sure you can put some money on your PayPal account or something like that. Yeah, it was great to see you. Have a nice evening. Bye, Andy.
Bye, Andy. Bye, Amy.
And also to the others. Bye-bye.
Ah, yeah, here we have to look.